Welcome in, everyone, to the Talkin Tide podcast on the Belly Up Podcast Network. I'm Chase Goodbread, sports columnist with the Tuscaloosa News, joined by Travis Reier, the longtime senior analyst at BamaOnline.com. You can get the Talkin Tide podcast at YouTube, Facebook. We're live in both of those places, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you can find us. And so give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a follow, and follow along with us here as we take twice weekly looks at Alabama football, looking ahead and looking back, of course, on the Sunday nighter. We're going to be looking back at this 10-point loss at home to the Texas Longhorns. Setback for Alabama, no doubt about it. We'll dive right into it here in just a minute. I want to thank Peterbrook Chocolatier, Heat Pizza Bar, and Caldera Men's Skincare, our three fine sponsors. More on them a little bit later in the program. Travis, we jump right in, talking Alabama football with a 10-point loss to the Texas Longhorns, 34-24, the final score. Travis, first home loss for Nick Saban since 2019, 3+ years. Been a long time since anybody's taken Alabama down in Bryant-Denny, but Texas, the better team, really on both sides of the ball.
They were. Played cleaner, more efficiently. I thought Sark had a really good plan. I thought the Texas defensive plan was really good. I know Alabama ended up hitting some explosives in the passing game, but early on and sort of setting a trap for Jalen Milroe on that early interception, and some of the stuff that they did on that side of the ball was very impressive. And we told people last week, stay away from this game as far as Vegas was concerned. Didn't feel good about it really either way. I didn't pick Texas to win the game, but I wasn't sold on Alabama being a 7 or 7.5 point better team than Texas. But you give more credit to Texas and you take away from Alabama. Alabama's still trying to obviously figure some things out in some different areas. I guess the biggest disappointment would be that you talked about it before the pod. You expected Alabama up front on both sides of the ball to be a little more competitive than it was in the game Saturday night.
Yeah, no doubt. The offensive line, the defensive line, both, frankly, long nights. And this was the kind of night, Travis, normally when you say you got to win on the line of scrimmage, typically you're talking about generating a ground game that can kind of keep things balanced and keep the sticks moving. This really wasn't that type of game. This type of game where getting dominated on the line of scrimmage happened in pass pro, right? On offense, on defense, not getting there. Just a huge difference in the amount of pressure that Jalen Milroe faced versus Ewers, who was really clean all night.
He was, and there were times where Texas got pressure with three guys. It wasn't all blitz based at all. They showed some pressures when they wanted Jalen to get rid of the ball quick. That worked effectively at times. And then there were times Jalen held on to the football. There's no doubt about that. But I think the early heat did affect him throughout the game. Now, he did rebound. And I think we're going to talk about this coming up here in a little bit at what might have been the most crucial point of his Alabama career there in the second half. He delivered on multiple big throws. So that was encouraging. The turnovers were discouraging, especially for a guy in his third year in the program. But I don't think you can put all of this on Jalen Milroe by any means, as you said.
No, you definitely can't.
Yeah, this was more about Texas being better, really, in just about every phase. I thought Alabama's receivers were a bright spot. I thought Alabama's specialists and special teams were bright spots. Other than that, you can kind of take your pick.
Yeah, no complaints on the receivers whatsoever. They made a couple of tough catches. You didn't see the dropsies from them in this game. So the wide receivers held up fine. Big night for Will Reichert, as you noted. Couple of numbers on the pressure just to put some perspective on it, Travis. Jalen Milroe was pressured 19 times. And of course, it's a little bit of a subjective definition of what a pressure is, right? It's in the eye of the beholder somewhat. But Jalen Milroe officially pressured 19 times on 27 attempts. So you work that into the 5 sacks, and you get an idea that it wasn't just the sack plays. He really felt heat pretty much 2 out of every 3 dropbacks. Ewers pressured only 8 times all night, no sacks, and nothing too good to say about Alabama's pass protection. Travis, obviously it was a rough night for the true freshman, Caden Proctor. But you know what? The interior of the offensive line, where Alabama has so much more experience, they gave up some pressure right up the middle. And, I felt like even though it wasn't just Texas pass rushers coming free all the time. Yeah, sometimes Texas was able to get a free rusher. You miss a block, what have you. You get beat really bad. Milroe got some runaway heat early in some dropbacks. But beyond that, Travis, even when the pocket was there, it was a small pocket, right? I didn't think either one of Alabama's offensive tackles, really anyone on the offensive line for that matter, they didn't anchor real well, right? If you're an offensive tackle, especially if you're taking on a bull rush, you got to maybe a step or two to give, and then you better anchor, right? And get that pocket formed clean where the quarterback's got some space to work with. But if you're getting driven back more than a couple of steps, it's too late to anchor, really, when your back's been kind of shoved up near the quarterback. And I felt like it was the kind of night where you wouldn't have been surprised if Milroe had busted a finger on somebody's helmet or gotten his elbow clipped on a couple of throw attempts and so forth.
No, it was a rough night. There's no doubt about it. I was surprised by the plan, to be honest with you. We're both Jacksonville Jaguar fans, so I don't know if you watched the Jags and the Colts today, but the Colts with Anthony Richardson, that was the plan I was expecting to see more of with Jalen Milroe. In other words, just about everything starting with action to the back, zone read action, keep off the zone read, design runs, get him on the move, half field reads, things like that. Now, that's not the distributor, I know, that say a Quinn Ewers or a Bryce Young is. That's not going to bring everybody into the offensive picture. But I think for the type of quarterback Jalen is right now, that's your best chance to win. That's my opinion. It felt like they were still trying to run basically last year's system in a lot of ways with Jalen Milroe. And they were going spread with 5-man protections. And not just that Jalen isn't maybe equipped as well to handle that, but you got a true freshman left tackle. And they weren't really committed to helping Caden Proctor with a tight end or a back. There were a lot of times they went 5-man protection.
Right.
And as you might expect, or should be expected, Caden Proctor had his struggles. But as you said, it wasn't just Caden Proctor. The snaps for a second straight week were a big problem. And
right.
You got a quarterback that's already getting heated up, and then you mix in those snaps, the anxiety is going to ramp up. It's going to speed him up twice as much.
No doubt about it. Nick Saban, following the game in his press conference, was asked by one of your colleagues, Travis, Charlie Potter, if he gave some thought to making a switch at the quarterback position. We got it teed up right here. Here's what he had to say.
Charlie?
Hey, Coach, just what did you think of the way that Jalen played tonight? Did you give any thought to maybe playing multiple quarterbacks?
I did, but when he put the drive together to go down the field and score, when we got ahead, I thought that gave him a lot of confidence. And but we never ever discussed it. I can't sit here and say the thought doesn't come to mind for any player that's having a difficult time. And but he made some good plays at the end of the game, and that was good to see. Obviously, the interception was critical in the game, and so we're just going to work to try to get all our players better.
Come over to the left side with John.
What did you see from 20 years?
There you have it from Nick Saban, Travis, referring to a scoring drive that put Alabama up very briefly 16-13 at the end of the third quarter. It was the only lead Alabama enjoyed all night. Saban said he felt better about Milroe's confidence at that point. The trouble with that, though, Travis, is even though he might be more confident, he's still under high heat because Texas's offense answered immediately. And that's what happened really throughout the fourth quarter. Every time Alabama's defense needed a stop, they not only didn't get it, they got gashed.
They did what, a 4-play 75-yard drive, a 7-play 75-yard drive. It was reminiscent of last year where, okay, you feel like the offense is starting to get into gear and the defense, which had pretty much kept Alabama in the game to that point, just gives it up. You know, the explosive plays. You look at Ewer's passing numbers in the fourth quarter, just dominating. So complimentary football kind of goes back to that. We didn't see it last year where all three phases really worked in concert together. And we didn't see it again on Saturday night against Texas. And, you know, I would be willing to bet at Nick Saban's Monday news conference that we'll get more of the we have to play better around the quarterback upon review, Chase. I don't know what the Vegas line is on that, what kind of betting favorite we need to play better around the quarterback. But I think we'll get that from Nick. And that's not to say that there still might be a plan for USF that involves playing another quarterback next week. I'm not trying to absolve Jalen Milroe of his mistakes because they were critical and they're the kind of throws that you can't make at this point. If you're a true freshman, you can throw it into trap coverage. You can't do that as a third-year guy. So he's going to be evaluated on that, I'm sure. But that's not to say that the rest of the guys, especially up front, don't deserve some criticism as well.
Worth noting too, Travis, that, you know, we've talked a lot about the pass pressure that Texas was able to bring with only 4 guys. And as you noted, more than once with only 3 guys. On the 2 biggest mistakes Milroe made, which were the interceptions that resulted in 10 Texas points, wasn't a ton of heat on him on those throws, right? I mean, you had the quick throw out to Burton into the trap coverage that you noted. That ball came out too fast for anyone to really be in Milroe's face. And the second interception, I didn't think the protection was that bad on that one either. So, you know, a lot of times, Travis, you see pass protection issues tied in with turnovers. These 2 particular interceptions, you know, on those plays only, if you just look at them in a vacuum, they really weren't tied to pass protection issues.
I didn't think so. The first one, again, it was what Texas dictated to Jalen on that play. They brought 5, but they brought 5 so he would get the ball out quick because they had the coverage set to where they wanted him to throw the football, and it worked out perfectly. It was perfectly designed. It was perfectly executed.
They even gave him a throwing lane. You know what I mean? They even gave him a gap.
And Alabama, that's a route that they've worked pretty well. They worked it last week with Isaiah Bond against Middle Tennessee fairly early in the game, and kind of looks like it has to be man coverage, and it isn't always going to be man coverage. And Jalen, it seems like when he has the call that needs to be on, and he either that or he sees it the way he needs to see the coverage. I mean, he still showed you in the game he can make some throws, man. He made some middle of the throw field seam, hole shots that were tough, like Malik Benson, Kobe Prentice comes to mind. He can hit a lot of different throws. You just hold your breath a little bit sometimes. That he's going where he needs to go with football still.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Texas got him confused a couple times, certainly on that first interception, no doubt about it. All right, moving on, the penalty problem. Travis, got to touch on that. 10 for 90. It jumps back to bite Alabama after just 1 week where Alabama looked like that problem might have been solved against Middle Tennessee State. Of course, no penalties on offense against the Blue Raiders. Not the case against the Longhorns, 10 for 90. Nick Saban exasperated certainly about that. And really about, when you mix that in with the low snaps and some of these other mental errors, miscues, et cetera, that we saw, really kind of put that offense behind the eight ball, put Milroe in a lot of third and longs, which is not going to be a recipe for success for any quarterback. Obviously, no quarterback wants to be in third and long, but a guy like Bryce Young, far better suited, and last year certainly more experienced to deal with 3rd and 8, 3rd and 12, et cetera, than Milroe.
Yeah, and absolutely. You lose 2 touchdowns Saturday night to penalties. You end up kicking field goals, but even with that, you're -8 on what you would have been with the touchdowns. So -2 in turnover margin. And also, they were field position turnovers. I mean, both of those interceptions set up the short fields for Texas. And they got 10 points out of those. So, again, there's some math involved there. But the penalties at this point, pretty much inexplicable. I kind of feel for Terry and Arnold because he had 3 of them in the game. And they were all pretty much the same thing, grabbing, holding. And in all 3 instances, he was in pretty good position. One of them was while on the punt return team. But he did some good things too. I mean, Terry and Arnold did some nice things.
He's physical.
But it's just right. It's just the consistency and, the number of these penalties that continue to crop up. And it also shows you there's a difference between playing pretty clean against Middle Tennessee and playing clean against a top 10, top 15 team like Texas.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I thought Malachi Moore played well, especially given that he was injured during the week and was questionable to play really up until the day of the game. Word kind of leaked out that he was in a little bit better shape than Jalen Key in terms of playing. They both ended up getting back on the field, but Moore certainly active early, had the big early play, and he looks to me like a guy who's capable of generating some turnovers down the road, Travis, for this Alabama defense. And yeah, 0 turnovers forced. It's an issue too. They did not force turnovers effectively at all last season. So that's definitely not something that Nick Saban wants to see problematic again in 2023. Thought Caleb Downs on the whole played pretty well as well. I think there's a whole lot of upside there. Another physical guy who can really bring it, really almost like a linebacker when it comes to tackling. And I think as time goes by, Downs is going to be outstanding in coverage as well. Wasn't bad in coverage last night, but I think where he stood out was more from a tackling aspect. Justice Haynes. Didn't see him. Didn't see a lot of him against Middle Tennessee State either. Travis, back in the spring, Downs and Haynes were kind of the freshman pair, right? That people kind of felt like was going to jump in and make a quick early splash. Downs certainly headed down that road. Haynes appears to be kind of caught in the wash in a backfield that's not going to be able to rotate 4.
Yeah, we saw Jam Miller, but it was pretty much a 2-back night. It was pretty much Jace and Roydell. And I think that probably went back to pass protection as much as anything, and trust in those guys, because I'm sure Alabama anticipated pressure coming between the A-gaps. I thought both teams were going to light up the A-gaps and really didn't see that much of it from either team. I think Benda got home one time, and Jace actually initially kneecapped him pretty good, but give that dude credit. Didn't slow him down all that much. He just kept playing through it. Jalen didn't have much working to the left, ended up holding on to the ball and took a sack. But yeah, I mean, that is one of the positives out of all this. A lot of young guys got some big time college football experience, and Caleb Downs was right in the middle of it. You're right. 10 tackles. You love that. He had coverage on Xavier Worthy. I thought he was in pretty good shape, but the damn ball from Ewers was
right,
dropped out of the sky perfectly, and Xavier Worthy looked like a Major League Baseball center fielder in catching that ball. So there's some things the guy and the throw just are too good, and I think that was one of those instances. You also had the touchdown pass to A.D. Mitchell there in the second half, where not sure what was going on there between Trey Amos and Caleb Downs. Downs kind of came up, drove up on the crosser over the top. Texas was able to hit it. But all in all, exceptional experience for a guy like Caleb Downs. Caden Proctor, too. I mean, Caden Proctor is going to be a really good player. But he was playing Iowa high school football last year at this time. You know,
Right. Tough
now you're
for a
dealing with
left
these
tackle.
cats from Texas. I mean, a little different deal here.
Tough for a left tackle. We may see a little bit more of a commitment from Tommy Reese to keeping a tight end to help out with pass pro down the road, you know, to see what they can do to maybe shore things up. But again, it's not just one edge. It certainly wasn't just one edge that was the problem against Texas. Proctor had a forgettable night, there's no doubt. But a lot of work to be done up on that offensive line. The Talkin Tide podcast on the Belly Up Podcast Network. I'm going to thank a couple of sponsors here really quickly. I'm going to start by telling you about Heat Pizza Bar. If you're looking for a fun place to watch Alabama's road game at USF on Saturday, drop by Heat Pizza Bar, located in downtown Tuscaloosa in Government Square. Recently ranked one of the top pizzerias in the entire state. Heat Pizza Bar offers great signature pizzas, sides, a full bar, a long line of flat screen TVs for your sports viewing pleasure. Get over there this week as well for the Wednesday special, which is that fantastic chicken bacon ranch pizza that Frank Fleming's staff will serve up for just $9 from 2 to 6 p.m. on Wednesday. You can't beat that. You can't beat Heat Pizza Bar, where Tuscaloosa's public parking garage always makes it easy to park and stop in at Heat Pizza, 2250 6th Street in Government Square.
I'm going to tell you about Peterbrook Chocolatier right there at 1530 McFarland Boulevard North in the Indian Hills section of Tuscaloosa for a sweet 16 years. Peterbrook Chocolatier has been serving the Tuscaloosa community. Get by there and check out that signature chocolate covered popcorn, those individual goodies that they've got there, the chocolate footballs as well. They can do custom molds for you. You know, you want to thank someone with that personal touch. You want to come up with something maybe for your company. They can do it in chocolate at Peterbrook Chocolatier, 1530 McFarland Boulevard North in the Indian Hills section of Tuscaloosa.
All right, finally, we're going to tell you about Caldera Men's Skincare, available now at a discount just for our listeners on Talkin Tide with the promo code TIDE. Just go to calderalab.com/Tide. If you live in Alabama, you know the sun can be hard on your face, so take care of it. I'm trying to do just that with Caldera. Now, they sent Travis and I a package to try the product. It's a team really of 4 products that we're trying out this month: the Clean Slate, the Base Layer, the Icon, and the Good. We've highlighted each of them individually, but they work kind of in concert. Clean Slate, a really good morning cleanser. The Base Layer is good if you feel like your skin's already a little bit too dried out. That'll happen when you get up around my age, Travis's age, certainly. They've got the Icon for the eyes. They've got the Good, of course, is going to make your skin feel great. Check out all the Caldera products at calderalab.com/Tide for the Talkin Tide audience. A 20% discount with the discount code TIDE. Once again, that is calderalab.com/Tide. Travis, we will move on as we always do and talk around the Southeastern Conference a little bit. Let's start by saying this, Travis, as we'll pop a couple of comments from the audience in here as well. It's been an awful start to the year for the SEC. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. Dropped 3 non-conference games in week 1, dropped at least 3 more in week 2. Miami over TAMU. You've got of course, Vanderbilt went down to Wake Forest. Maybe that wasn't such a surprise. Thoughts on overall on how the SEC's looked to you, Travis, thus far?
Mediocre at best,
Yeah.
I guess. I would say the SEC West, the 3 favorites, getting off to the starts that they have. You kind of get it with Alabama and LSU, given the competition. I mean, Florida State, we're seeing more and more, is very much a real college football playoff contender. So you give LSU a little bit of grace about a game that was played in Orlando on top of everything else. That was so Texas A&M-y Saturday down in South Florida.
Yeah.
You're becoming desensitized to it under Jimbo. And that being said, Texas A&M will beat somebody. It might be even Alabama in early October. We'll see when the Tide goes out there. But there's still so much talent on that roster. And you wonder how things continue to fall apart for them over the course of 60 minutes. So, yeah, I would say as much as anything, I would have thought between the 3 SEC West division favorites, they would have won one of those 3 games.
Yeah, and I thought the same. If you watch the Ole Miss win over Tulane as well, that was the only other game in the country that was a ranked versus ranked opponent. If you only saw the final score, you might have thought Ole Miss handled them easy. They didn't. Even with a backup quarterback, Michael Pratt, the outstanding Green Wave quarterback, unable to go in this one, kind of a last-minute scratch. And Tulane, with a backup quarterback, gave Ole Miss all they wanted. It was a one-score game well into the fourth quarter, and the Rebels were able to pull away on the road in New Orleans. Travis, Mississippi State over Arizona by a touchdown. Auburn sneaks past Cal and
stayed up and watched all of that one. Yeah,
Lee County at Berkeley. Travis, the culture clash. My goodness,
that was an ugly football game. But hey, if you're Hugh Freeze and in a season where wins might be precious, to get one on the road anywhere, you're going to take that one. And look, I give Ole Miss credit because you said it. That was not a fluid first half by any means, but boy, really turned it on. And backup quarterback, as you said, for Tulane, but still good for Ole Miss to go down there and get the job done.
What about MTSU giving Mizzou all they wanted? I mean, really?
Mizzou's not much, man.
No.
And I like Drinkwitz at the podium, just like everybody else. But I still don't understand who made the call to extend and raise him at the end of last season. At the end of a bad season. Somebody got bamboozled.
Hard to figure.
And guy's not a bad coach, but yeah, Mizzou's just pretty average at best.
All right. Before we get out of here, Travis, as always, we're going to take a dip into the Two Deep Tumbler, see who pops out. Our friend Sam Matthews with a question here a few minutes ago. Travis,
Alabama guy, big number 95 back in the day.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Then I think Sam moved to offense and wore 68. Yeah, I think that's right. Sam will let me know. Go ahead.
Yeah. But
he wanted to ask about the run game, I think.
Yeah, the running game. It was
9 yards in the second half. Now, you're behind. You get behind, I understand that. But 9 yards?
Yeah. As soon as Texas took it to a 2-score game in the fourth quarter, and you talked about there not being a lot of, designed run, RPO type stuff, first half, absolutely. Down 2 scores in the fourth. Even if you run that stuff, you're not going to bait Texas. They're playing pass up 2 scores in the fourth. So it was just when
I say this about the RPO and the design runs, I'm not just talking about Milroe. I'm talking about whether it's Tyler Buckner, Ty Simpson, any of those 3 guys.
There's your confirmation from Big Sam, by the way.
Yeah, Sam got me. Any of those 3 guys, that's what I would want to see. Is more designed quarterback runs, more, RPO, whatever. Not straight drops with some of these guys. Not this year.
Not this year. All right. Two Deep Tumbler we go. Going to give this thing a spin real quick and see who pops out. We've already had 4 come out of the tumbler, Travis, and we know this thing's got a mind of its own, and there's
it's like a cobra. It's like a cobra, the way it strikes coming out of there.
It tends to
you got like a flute you can play, like for the cobra?
That's right. It tends to kick out players that we've been discussing throughout the podcast. It's happened multiple times. Number 88 comes out right here, Miles Kitzelman, Travis, the tight end from the JUCO ranks. We really haven't seen much of any of him early in the season. Pretty deep tight end room, a tight end room that by all indications, the coaching staff is quite happy with. But thus far, not a lot of Kitzelman on the field.
No, Amari Niblack, man, he's that dude right now at tight end. and they're using him inline. They've asked him to help in pass protection. He had a couple of tough assignments of his own in pass pro the other night, including the touchdown pass from Jalen to Jermaine Burton that actually counted. That was a beauty of a deep ball, and one you got to give Jalen a lot of credit for. He used his feet like he needed to get into position to deliver that throw. Well, Nyblack had a one-on-one in pass pro. He held up. He didn't dominate, but he held up. But Kitzelman, you're right. It's kind of what right now? Amari Nyblack, CJ Dupree, and what? Robbie Oots.
Little bit of Oots, yeah.
Danny
Not
Lewis
I haven't
been in
seen
that
as much
mix.
Danny Lewis as I had been told I would likely see either.
Right.
And that may be coming.
Yeah, they got a lot of guys. I mean, they're going to be able to, I would think, redshirt Ty Lockwood if they want to. They're 5'6" tight ends, scholarship wise, deep.
All right, that's going to do it for this fine edition of the Talkin Tide podcast on the Belly Up Podcast Network. Be sure to join Travis and I on Wednesday night when we reconvene and preview Alabama's road game at South Florida coming up this weekend in Tampa. Until then, for Travis Reier of BamaOnline.com, I'm Chase Goodbread, sports columnist with the Tuscaloosa News. We'll talk to you next time right here on Talkin Tide.